What is, mechanically speaking, the difference between sleep, coma, and anesthesia for consciousness?
Well, sleep is a reconnection to spirit and a recharging, in a sense, of the physical realm. Remember, the physical reality isn't real, and the way you know that is it has to be maintained. It decays. That which is real doesn't decay, it doesn't degenerate, it doesn't decompose. So sleep is for the purpose of recharging, in a sense, the batteries of maintaining the concept of physical reality as an experience. Now, a coma will usually be for the purpose of just regenerating the physical form itself. It will allow you a long hibernation that will allow for certain repairs to occur in the physical form. There may be a connection in spirit in that sense, but not necessarily bringing back with it the idea of any information that would alter the path of your life once the physical body is regenerated. Anesthesia, on the other hand, is something that puts you into a suspension that in most cases will prevent any kind of cognition from occurring, so that it's more like you just sort of skipped over a track, so that one moment you were conscious and then you were not, and then the next moment of consciousness leaves a gap, in a sense, in your life that you barely feel. And again, it doesn't mean that you weren't out doing things, but it doesn't bring back with it anything that's pertinent to add to your life per se, at least not consciously.
So if at some level you do remember what's happening to you, like, for example, if you go under anesthesia to have a tooth removed or something like that, you may not have a memory of the
Yes.
event. However, some level of you does, and the
Of
universe
course, of
records,
course,
right?
of course. And you will know all of that when you're back in spirit and going through a life review. You'll see every single second.
But
Many things you may have forgotten or never even knew occurred. You will experience every single second of it, at least as an observation, if nothing else.
I see.
And you will know what you were doing during that time.
So back to that idea of process of going into a dream state and coming out. I know that our scientists have documented the different stages of going to sleep,
Yes.
and particularly that stage where you seem not to be able to move. It can happen either when you're going in or coming out of a dream, right?
Yes. You're fixing yourself in a certain vibrational state. Now, this can happen for a variety of reasons. Of course, as we said, a lot of it happens sometimes when you're shifting into a different dimension because you're no longer really controlling your movements as a physical being, and therefore your body remains rigid. So again, this can serve a variety of purposes. It can act as a buffer for a transition from one state to another. It can simply be representative of the fact that you want to make sure that you stay and remain in a certain state for a variety of reasons while you're out doing something else. Again, it can be for a number of reasons.
And this person was saying that they made the decision to become vegan.
Yes.
And then once they did that, they started having amazing dreams, like tons and tons of dreams. Is
Yes.
this common, that diet will affect your ability to remember your dreams or what you experience?
The choice to change the diet is a reflection of a change in energy already within your consciousness. It's just that now, because you have made that shift to a higher frequency within yourself, you simply no longer have the urge to eat things that you would consider to be of a lower, denser vibration. So it's not that the vegan diet affects the dreams, it's that you've already gone to a higher level that promotes those kinds of experiences, and the vegan diet is a reflection of the change you've made within your frequency.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
All
yes.
you remember, these are all reflections, and they seem to be driving it, but no, they're actually
They're reflections of a change that already exists. Now, that doesn't mean that the foods are not lighter in frequency. Of course they are. But again, that's a reflection of the higher frequency that you've already made within yourself.
Can you explain how we shift through the frames of physical reality while we are dreaming? Do we continue to shift through the frames when we are unconscious, or are there special parameters for our unconscious selves?
You are always shifting whether you know it or not. That's just the fundamental nature of the structure of existence. because there is only one now moment. And anything in any way at any time that you experience as a difference between one moment and another moment, if you can perceive the idea of a difference, you've shifted. So it doesn't matter whether you're physical or non-physical. It's just that the time frames operate differently. Some are faster, some are slower, in terms of how you perceive the creation of time by the shifting of your consciousness. That's all relative. But there's always a shift, always a shift. The only place that has no shift is the unbroken homogeneous one that has no experience or awareness of itself. But from all that is, all the way down, everything is shifting. That's the nature of its existence, because there's only one moment in which to experience anything. Therefore, you have to experience the same moment from a different perspective to notice any kind of a difference of any nature whatsoever. So shifting is automatic. Not to make a vehicle pun.
As at a spiritual school, I was awoken one night with a ball of light and the sound of a bird and breath and a piano in my room. How are visions or experiences like this different from dreaming?
Well, they are, in a sense, to use a word, intrusions from the dream reality into your physical awareness. So in other words, there's a kind of a bleed through or a leak through, which means you have sort of diminished the separational barriers between physical and non-physical reality, and are experiencing bleed throughs from other realities and other experiences that you may be connected to, but usually shut out of your physical life.
And is there a meaning to this vision, or is that possible for you to give any insight on that?
Well, again, it can be representative of connections that you have that inform you in this life. So let's say the idea of hearing a piano, maybe connecting to a very musical life, and the idea that the vibrations, the frequencies of music may be of some assistance to you. It may be a soothing energy for you in this life, or it may be something that inspires you to be more creative. It depends on the person.
How can we dream of you? How can we communicate with you in dream form? And is there something that would help us achieve this more easily?
All right, well, again, more often than not, you will most likely connect to the entire frequency of my people, my world, my reality, rather than a specific individual other than your own counterpart or future self, which is more likely. However, if you remember any conversations that we have had, or remember any time that we have communicated with any of you, remember the vibrational feeling, the frequency that you felt, even the timbre of the channel's voice can put you in a state where you are more easily connecting not only to my collective vibration, but to my vibration to some degree as well. Now, again, it's not always important to connect specifically to me, but you can certainly use the specificity of your interactions with me, specifically as an individual, to connect to whatever you need to within our collective vibration, including, again, if you have a counterpart there. So don't insist that it has to be me, but you can use the memory of these experiences and the tonal vibrations of the frequencies that we give off in order to connect to whatever you need to that is a representation of our reality. Remember, no insistence.
This question is, you've said that you do not dream and you don't sleep. So do you ever get bored with the experience of consciousness itself?
First of all, I said we do not sleep. We do not dream in the way that you do because we are always dreaming. So no, there's no boredom. We're constantly walking through multidimensional experiences of different kinds of dreams, including physical reality. So we didn't mean that we don't dream at all. We simply don't dream the way you do, in the sense of disconnecting from the physical world, so to speak, or shutting out your focus of the physical world, because we're always awake and we're always dreaming.
So do you miss sleeping and being unconscious at
No.
all?
First of all, the change in my society happened even before I was born, so I've never slept. So there's nothing to miss.
And but you have other connections that tell you what sleep is like. For example, when Darryl is sleeping, is it easier for you to connect with him and communicate with him in dream state, or is it easier just direct communication?
It depends on the type of connection. It depends on what's going on in the channel's life. In general, yes, it can be easier because the channel's physical consciousness is set aside to some degree. But that doesn't mean we haven't communicated and can't communicate, and doesn't mean the channel is not consciously aware of our communication even when he's awake, especially after 38 years of experience with us. He's gotten used to it. So sometimes the communication can be there, and it's like he drops into a kind of a daydream. So he understands how that feels, and he understands what that experience is, and he recognizes when it happens. But again, yes, in general, it can be a little bit easier when he is asleep.
And like that time, as was shown in the First Contact documentary, of when he experienced, I guess, in a dream state,
Yes.
where you were coming off the ship and then you were eye to eye.
Yes, that happened in a slightly shifted, altered physical reality or quasi-physical reality, which is usually where our communications take place when he's asleep.
And it was designed to show him how your frequency is in relation to ours as physical beings, and the amount of clarity I believe you would need to have in order to maintain your own persona in your presence.
Correct.
Do you all use any kind of permission slips for getting into other states of consciousness?
If that is necessary, it will synchronistically arrive and is a very fluid and smooth experience with no real need for a request or a decision to be made consciously about what those permission slips might be. Because again, everything is interacting, interpenetrating as a multidimensional dream in our waking state. So if a permission slip is needed, it is simply there. Now, you could say that our spacecraft are a type of permission slip because they are a crystallized physical symbology of our higher minds, and we communicate telepathically with the craft. And you could say, therefore, the craft is a permission slip because ultimately we don't really need the craft, but we also maintain the craft not only for a permission slip for our purposes, but for your purposes and other civilizations who would rather and prefer to make it make more sense to have open contact by seeing an extraterrestrial arrive in a spaceship rather than just popping into your living room unannounced.
Although for our initial contacts that many people may have one-on-one, wouldn't popping in be more likely to happen than somebody showing up on a ship? Or
not necessarily. Again, it depends on the person, it depends on the theme, it depends on where they're at vibrationally in their path.
So it could be either one in terms of the
Yes.
contact experience.
Absolutely.
And it could even just be auditory, right?
Absolutely. And it can even be just like what we're experiencing right now.
Oh,
This